Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Pavel Drábek. I am the curator of PQ Best Publication Award, and I have the great honor and privilege to be presenting to you today the 9 shortlisted authors of the PQ Best Publication. Now, we don't know who wins yet. We will know that tomorrow at 9 p.m. during the award ceremony. But you are looking at a winner. Okay. I would now like to ask on the podium my 2 dear colleagues who are on the jury with me. So this is Donatella Barbieri and Aziza Kadiri. We have a few words of introduction to say about the selection process, so bear with. Afterwards, we'll go through individual presentations. So the 9 shortlisted publications are truly rare in more than one way. They cross borders between countries, cultures, and times. They bring fresh insights into diverse scenographic practices, and they are beautiful artifacts in their own right. These books were published across more than 10 countries from all around the world, often straddling national and cultural borders and bringing together artists, practitioners, scholars and arts practices and knowledges of an amazing width. While the PQ Best Publication Award 2023 is a competition, we wished it to be first and foremost an opportunity to share knowledge, promote good work and cultivate our global scenographic communities. We believe that while competition make good business, they don't always make good societies. It is our hope that all the publications submitted to this PQ program's call help to make a good company of artists, practitioners, scholars and other lovers of scenography and performance design. Now, I forgot to say, Tanya Beer is on her way from a workshop, so she will be coming in a flash and joining us on the podium. I would like now to ask Donatella to say a few words about the selection.
Okay, thank you so much, Pavel. That was beautiful, beautiful words for our wonderful roundtable panel of shortlisted authors, and also added to them, perhaps we should also remember the non-competing volumes and the long-listed and all of the submitters of publication. All of that work expands scenography. We are becoming porous, we are becoming influential, proud of ourselves, what we can do in the world as scenographers, as authors around scenography. So it's a really lovely time at the moment. In so many other ways not, but to be a scenographer, to be a scenography thinker, this is a fantastic time, and this amazing, and here's Tanya, these amazing colleagues are really demonstrating through their hard work. It's a hard work thing working. We were just exchanging notes. My book, I was the winner last time, took 7 years. Some of your books probably took just as long, or if not longer or less, but whatever it is a long arc. And we're coming to a point of fruition of very good material being generated, of which we are proud as a community. So thank you to anybody who engages with the art of putting together your thoughts on paper and bringing these ideas to us and sharing them with us. Very happy to be part of this process. Thank you. And pass it to Aziza.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to make a couple of points on which criteria, in a way, we were looking at as well, because it was really important for us to choose the publications that really understood the context they were existing in and really try to unpick it and research what is going on in the current times, and as well as, you know, working on the intersection of the political and the social, and, you know, be that feminist practices or ecological practices or post-colonial, decolonial perspectives, and other very important points. And yeah, it's incredibly exciting that also all the 9 publications are so different. There isn't a single book that is like the other, and all of the books look at different perspectives and different parts of scenography and beyond. And yeah, this has been a great honor to read the books and be able to also meet you in person. So.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Aziza. Thank you very much, Donatella. Donatella mentioned that there was a non-competing category. Now, those non-competing are exhibited. You can see them along with the long-listed publications and all the submitted publications in the National Gallery. The reason why they are non-competing because they have some kind of connection with PQ. So either authors are or it was published by PQ, and we thought it would be unfair not to have them enter. But it would be also unfair to have them compete because there would be some potential clash of interests, and we certainly wanted to avoid that. So we have the great pleasure of hearing 9 shortlisted publications, authors of publications or editors of publications talking today about their wonderful books. We also, as a jury, would like to make 2 special mentions. We have 2 honorable mentions to make. One to Scott Palmer, Jocelyn McKinney and Stephen Di Benedetto for their Matthew and Bloomsbury series Performance and Design, because that work is incredible and we wanted to acknowledge that what they are doing as curators of knowledge and practice deserves a special mention. And also the other honorable mention goes to those unnamed authors who are writing about scenographies for non-Western perspectives and in non-Western traditions. So thank you very much, congratulations, and I would now like to invite Flaviana Sampaio to talk about lighting dance.
Thank you, Pavel, Donatella, Aziza, for the introduction. Good evening. Good evening, curators, panelists, audience. Good evening, everyone. This is a special moment for me. I'm glad to say that my book has a strong connection with the PQ. This is my 3rd time in Prague. Back in 2015, I came to share initial ideas of my practice-led PhD developed in the UK. In 2019, I came back to perform my solo sombrero, which is one of the main practical results of my PhD, which led me to this book. And now, for the first time, I came all the way from home, Salvador, Bahia, Brazil, to take part in this inspiring roundtable. And I have the joyful company of my beloved mother, daughter, and husband. The story of the book echoes my artistic and my academic paths. I've been a dancer since I was 11, and during my dance bachelor studies, I worked, experimented with lighting in indoor and outdoor events. This experience led me to a master's dissertation in dance lighting, which was pioneer on this topic in my country. Another insight I had for the book was my experience as a professor at the Bahia Southwest State University, where I teach lighting and creative models for dance and drama students. My drive to research shadows came from reflecting on how ambiguous and mesmerizing they can be. I believe that as people observe shadows in daily life and in art, we can explore their movable and cultural nature to facilitate new aesthetic readings of dance performances and to lead to the creation of new pieces. One of the contents of my book is this piece by Eloy Filler, Ombres Gigantescas. It is important because Filler is widely recognized for her solo works that use light in different angles and colors, while her shadow performances also is valuable for dance lighting. On the left, we see a study of size of shadows according to the dance's location in relation to the light. And on the right, we see a hand shadow that seems to scare the dancers. All the investigations I analyze in the book are the potential of shadows to distort, to multiply, and to annul the appearance of dancers on stage. Another notable aspect of the book is the diversity of artistic context. In addition to a range of dance pieces, I also provide analysis of a silent film installation, a contemporary installation, a painting, as well fantasy and novel books, like Peter Pan and The Name of the Rose. In terms of academic writing, I drew inspiration from varying authors, both to analyze artworks and also to experiment with shadows in the studio. In terms of physical shadows, my exploration delved into the casual effect of light blockage by a person or an object, and the shadows' characteristics such as volume, size, color. My investigation into philosophical shadows centered on the symbolism of shadows perceived by individuals, and my study in psychological shadows was mainly influenced by Carl Jung's theory, which states that the shadow represents a trait that a person tends to project onto others rather than confront with themselves. My investigation in the studio took inspiration from the select artworks I analyzed and also from the theory. And in this experiment in particular, I was moved by a text from the American philosopher Royce Lorenzen, and I wanted to test, as I moved farther or closer to the darkness, how my shadow color could change. I was also aiming in this experiment to make a shadow that could look in equal importance as my body on stage. One of the main challenges I have with this research was the practical part. I was usually given slots in the studio to use the studio at night or weekends with no technician around. So I had to set a camera in a tripod to record myself. I had to invite friends to operate the lights. And it was longer than I was anticipating, but I could progress. And I created a solo called Sombrero, echoing some of the experiments, and also I studied and reflections on cultural shadows after a field study I conducted in Brazil. And I would love to show a very small part of it. Can you play the video, please? Thank you. The song I use in my solo is from Hungarian artist Gulia Kapsu. I'd like to thank you all for your attention. Thank you to creators for selecting my book, WESB, the Bahia Southwest State University, my workplace, for providing me a leave to study for PhD. CAPS, it's a Brazilian founding agency for making my PhD a reality, and also Artefacts for disseminating my research in different platforms. And last but not least, my family for all support and love. Thank you all. That's it.
Thank you very much, Flaviana. The second speaker, we have two speakers, are Valentina Bari and Peonia Veloz, who will be talking about their wonderful book called Descubrir el Vestuario.
Hi. Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. Peonia Veloz and I are both costume designers, teachers, and researchers from Argentina. First of all, we are very grateful to PQ and the Best Publication Award jury for inviting us to share this book with you. The idea of writing a book on costume design came out from our teaching activity. We were coming out of a class, teaching together, and Peonia asked me, also wondered herself, why we didn't write a book on costume design. To which I answered, yes, not without a little fear. We needed some theoretical material for teaching, and there was nothing specific on the subject, at least in Spanish. It was a process of almost 9 years in the midst of professional and teaching work and life itself. So we would like to share with you how we built the book. We first wondered how we could go through the specificity of the discipline without falling into cliches, without creating a manual or a series of chapters that would only compile experiences or personal work. We began by gathering our class programs, developing those contents, and studying the transfer of professional experiences into teaching practice. We made graph charting of these materials, turning words into images. We also gathered all the existing bibliography from our libraries and from all people and institutions we were able to contact. That was a base, but it was not enough. In order to carry out these ideas, the first step we took was to talk to each other about the topics we wanted to develop. By explaining to each other our processes and subjects, we were able to better understand our profession. When you put words on something you usually just do, it starts to have a new dimension. From this series of conversations that were recorded and later transcribed, the idea of interviewing other professionals was born. And that was growing with the passing of the years and the needs of the research. The interviewed professionals were multiple. We started with those who we consider had laid the foundation of costume design in our territory as a language and as a discipline, also as a teaching issue. Later, we wondered about the current mutation of the role, and we searched for the voices of younger designers that were adapted to other ways of production. But that also was not enough, because we couldn't explain many of the constructions and decisions that are made in costume design without having the thoughts of the other participants of the performance, like directors, actresses, set designers, lighting designers, makeup artists, producers, tailors, and so on. We conducted over 30 interviews in different parts of the country. Across these interviews, and while doing them, we set our gaze on the design process. We focused on differences and similarities in both the personal and regional ways of doing things. The question about the territory generated very deep reflections in us and in the interviewees, mainly because it underlies the specific task of design and challenge our individual and collective identity. Territory as a concept and a few other topics in the book function as a continuous cross-axis. We asked ourselves about productions stemming from other ways of doing things in other parts of the country, not only Buenos Aires. From the particular relationships between space and bodies. The answers we received confirmed the richness of each place and showed how collective and personal processes are a mirror of each region. We started going back and forth with the text thousands of times. Then we repeated the action with the images, with the index, and with the final graph chart. Each part had thousands of versions, reading, tweaks, and comments. Finally, they all became indivisible. They became a single corpus. Regarding the images, we started from the book Body Language, which has the distinctive feature of placing two images in dialogue, in counterpoint that open up to multiple readings. We told ourselves, that's what we want. We collected thousands of images. Each chapter brought together a selection of 200 or 300 images of films and performative productions from Argentina that had to be condensed to 4 or 5 or 6. The selections that we were making marked several paths of visual and theoretical narration. The intent was that the images, in addition to being relevant to the chapter, had to lead us on a path to expressing the different questions on costume design as a visual language, articulating its own visual narrative. We selected those that condensed what was essential, and those that were left out could somehow be part of that cut, leaving their mark. Some of the images that were left out are what we are sharing today in this presentation. We use the same mechanism that we use designing, both to write and to select the images, making a decision from a proposal that goes beyond the sheer choice of a part, The selection makes sense because it responds to certain previously agreed concepts. This is how we decide what shape, color, or texture would be the catalyst for some costume. It is a conceptual point of view, not a jacket or a coat, that contains all previous searches. After much back and forth on the structure of the index, we organized the books as follows. An opening that develops the motivations, an introduction to the definition of performance representation, representación espectacular, to address the field of action of costume design. 7 scenes or chapters that develop all the design processes, which is not a closure, but an invitation to go forward. And an epilogue with a scope that presents costume design in relation to dramaturgy, to direction, to acting, and to the audience. In addition, in each scene, there are fragments of poetic or theoretical text. Other writers invite us on a non-linear journey to think about the issues of costume design within its own rules. Now, Peonia is going to share with you in Spanish a few words about the book, just to make visible what we try to say in our book when we talk about territory.
El libro tiene el carácter de obra, también en su hechura, porque no partió de ningún supuesto o forma de investigación tradicional. Si bien es un libro de texto e imagen, su proceso fue de una obra visual, de un diseño de vestuario, de una clase en la cual los estudiantes nos devuelven un diseño superador de cualquier teoría. Encontramos maneras de graficar lo escrito y de escribir la imagen. Texto, imagen jugando todo el tiempo. Deseábamos decir estas palabras de cierre en nuestro idioma porque el libro se construyó alrededor de la idea de lo situado, del territorio argentino, y parte de esa particularidad es la voz, el idioma, la articulación de las palabras que hacen a un modo de escribir y de ver el mundo. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Valentina. Thank you very much, Peonia, for a wonderful presentation, for your wonderful book. I would now like to ask Kristina Mogilnicka. Kristina is not an author, but she's a very important person from the Theatre Institute in Warsaw and will be talking about Zmiana ustawienia.
Yes, hello, I'm very happy to be here. So I'm not an author, but I represent Zbigniew Raszewski Theatre Institute in Warsaw, in Poland. And we are very happy to have 2 books presented here. One book will be presented by Zoltán Imre after me. And I will only introduce the Zmiana ustawienia, change of setting, that is very special 3-volume huge book, and its editors Dorota Buchwald and Dariusz Kosiński unfortunately couldn't come to Prague, but Dariusz recorded a video. It's 7 minutes long, but I think you will like it. Thank you.
The huge 3-volume publication, Change of Setting, Polish Theatre and Social Scenography of 20th and 21st Century, is an outcome of a research project that was realized from March 2017 till June 2020 at the Raszewski Theatre Institute in Warsaw. The idea of the project was to create a new panorama, a new synthesis of the development of Polish stage and social design of 20th and 21st century, together with broadening the concept of scenography, not stage design, but scenography, to include also the social performances and social dramas staged in different public spaces like manifestations, public liturgies, and so on and so on. We finally came out with 3 volumes. The first one, From Decoration to Construction, is devoted to the stage theater scenography of the first part of 20th century, more or less until the outbreak of the Second World War. It starts with an article by Dorota Jarząbek-Wasyl devoted to the new concept of stage decoration, of stage painting, influenced by new currents of modern visual arts. Then there is an article on Stanisław Wyspiański, painter, drama writer, poet, stage designer also, who is considered to be a creator of a new Polish theater. Then Wanda Świątkowska covers the history of the space and stage design experiments of the first Polish theater laboratory, Reduta, of Juliusz Osterwa and Mieczysław Limanowski. And finally, in two-part chapter, I'm trying to develop the history of Polish theater avant-garde, concepts of scenography and theater spaces, argumenting that we need to differ between two currents of these avant-garde experiments. One is more concerned with constructivism and construction of a new space, and the other one, next developed after the Second World War, was focused more on the performative aspects of the theater as a medium and the theater as an event. The second volume, called In the Labyrinth of Spaces and Images, is divided into two parts. The first part is devoted to the stage design, to the theater scenography after the Second World War until today. And it's not so much a conscious history of the development of the scenography, but rather a collection of essays presenting different interpretations of the development of Polish stage design. There is also an interesting attempt of creating a commented catalogue of images haunting Polish theater after the Second World War, when me and Dorota Buchwald are trying to develop a new strategy of telling the story of stage design, not by words, but mainly by images. Then the second part of the volume is devoted strictly to the social performances and social scenography. It was written not by theater scientists, not by theater researchers, but by the representatives of political science from the Warsaw University, who are developing the concept of social scenography, first theoretically, then historically, and also by analyzing interesting case studies. First, there is a case study of the scenography of important funerals, mainly state funerals, but also funerals of heroes of Polish anti-communist opposition. Then there is an article devoted strictly to the altars prepared for the liturgical visits of Polish Pope John Paul II. Both cases are presenting possible potential developments of the concept of social scenography, and I think that they are proving that there is a way of analyzing social events, social performances, also from the perspective of scenographical stage design of social spaces. Then we again changed the tone and changed the size of a book in the third volume called Expositioning, let's say, in English. It's a very interesting attempt, I would say, of restaging an exposition. Between November 2019 and January 2020, at the National Gallery of Contemporary Art Zachęta in Warsaw, there was an exposition called The Change of Setting, exposition of Polish stage design of 20th and 21st centuries, organized in the frame of our project by a visual artist and stage designer by himself, Robert Rumas. Then, after the exhibition, Robert proposed to restage, reperform, retell the exhibition in the form of a book designed as a kind of exhibition on pages. So we tried to recreate the exhibition. It's not a catalog. In fact, it's a retelling of the visual narratives of this exhibition and yet another way of telling the story of development of Polish stage and social design. As you see, just looking at the pictures, there is a combination of pictures from theater performances together with important, sometimes even iconical images from Polish performances of 20th century. The book is huge, but I do hope that we managed to achieve the goal of presenting a new panorama, a new synthesis of Polish stage design of last 2 centuries.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kristina, for presenting this book, and thank you very much, and greetings to Dariusz Koszyński for this. I would now like to hand over to Dariusz Koszyński's co-editor, and here is your clicker, Zoltán Imre, who will be talking about the other book that came from a collaboration between the Polish Theatre Institute and a number of others. But Zoltán, this is over to you. Zoltán will be talking about the reclaimed avant-garde.
Thank you very much for the introduction, the invitation, and the selection as well. It's an honor and a pleasure being here in Prague. And I'm going to speak about this book, Reclaimed Avant-Garde, Spaces and Stages of Avant-Garde Theatre in Central Eastern Europe. And it was edited by me and Darek, who was on the screen previously. So, this book is a collection of articles that explore innovative uses of space in theatre of the historical avant-garde in Central Eastern Europe. The time span covers the first part of the 20th century, and geographically it covers the Central European states from the Baltic states, Belarus, Ukraine, Poland, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, the states of ex-Yugoslavia, and Romania and Bulgaria. So the authors came from various backgrounds of Central Eastern Europe. As you can see, the long list of authors on the left side. And not only the project was international, was based on international collaboration, but the publication itself, because 5 different institutions, Eastern European institutions, published this book, and I think it's a rare occasion within Eastern Europe. And all the organizing stuff and all the administrative duties were covered by the Polish Theatre Institution in Warsaw, and special thanks to Kristina and Edita for that. And the book itself contains of 4 chapters. The first chapter is dealing with the spaces of the new stage. That's the title, and it covers Croatia, Latvia, Slovenia, Ukraine, and Poland, and investigate how space was newly created by scenography on stage by the avant-garde or the avant-garde theater. And the second chapter deals with space a little bit differently. We gave the title Theater as Social Space. So it considers theater and theater building or stage building as a social space through Lithuanian, Czech, Bulgarian examples. The third chapter carves out space for the unknown women of Central European avant-garde theater through Ukrainian, Polish, and Hungarian examples. Though these women were not unknown at that time, but somehow, mysteriously, magically, they have been forgotten. And the final part of the book, called Crossroads, And this chapter gathers articles that highlight intercrossing path of theater and visual arts. So each chapter deals space and investigates space rather differently, and that's the point of the entire book. And our historical and academic research was supplemented by 2 artistic projects. One of them was a street performance by Robert Rumas, and the title was Ave, an action for footsteps, megaphones, flags, shouts, and flares. And the other artistic project was titled 7 Songs About the Avant-Garde, Reconstructions, and it was done by the Komuna Warsaw and directed by Grzegorz Lasuk. And this way, our historical findings and our historical researches was supplemented and put into practice in contemporary choreography and contemporary stages. And I have only one thing to mention, that the entire project was co-financed by the Polish Ministry of Culture and National Heritage and by the Polish Ministry of Sciences and Higher Education. And I would like to thank for everyone taking part in this project, and I would like to thank everyone taking part in this book as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Zoltan, for presenting Reclaimed Avant-Garde. I would now like to ask Tanya Beer to talk about her book. Oh, Tanya, would you like a podium? Or a clicker?
Yes, please. Yep.
Okay, would you like to come to a podium? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
I'm just going to try and do this. Hi, everyone. So sorry for coming late. I was coming from doing an eco-scenography workshop at Damu, where basically I'm trying to put the book that I've written into practice with a bunch of participants. So I call myself an ecological designer, community artist, I'm an educator and a researcher, and in many ways I like the term pracademic because I am very much an academic, but I also still practice, and I try to bring those 2 worlds together as best as possible. That was a real driver for my research, and my book is based on my PhD research, which I conducted in 2012 at the University of Melbourne, and also my postdoctoral research continuing on. So it's about 10 years of investigation. So the book was a relief, actually, when I got it out there, because it felt like now I can start focusing on other things, I suppose. There was a lot going on in my head, and the development of the book really was post-PhD in many ways too, because I feel like it was only after the PhD that I really understood what I was doing. So yeah, it takes a while sometimes for these ideas to come together and be clear in your mind, I suppose, when you're writing. And I suppose for me, eco-scenography is about bringing scenography into broader ecologies, broader issues. It's about thinking about what eco-scenography can do, thinking about scenography as a verb and thinking more about the how of what we do. And it builds on, it's not only featuring my own practice, it's featuring the practice of many eco-scenographers around the world, and often people who are not celebrated, often people that have sort of slipped under the radar, and many of them are activists and doing this kind of work with a lot of risk and not a lot of reward. And for me, it's been really important if you're starting to create a movement, which I think this book for me was about trying to bring awareness here and create a movement around the issue. It's so important to bring other people along with you. Yeah, that's a big part of forefronting ecological ways of thinking and doing, and understanding that this way of working also looks and feels quite different depending on when you're at different parts of the world, and trying to make this a global, trying to talk about it as globally as I can, which is difficult because language also is an issue. There are, it's not actually a really thick book. I think at one point I just decided I couldn't write anymore, which I'm sure maybe some authors here also feel that at some point it's got to stop, and maybe another book will come again. But the main chapters are the philosophical underpinnings for ecological design thinking, and it was about taking philosophies from lots of disciplines and ways of thinking, and trying to think about how that underpinning, that philosophy, changes the way we think about scenography in a time of increasing climate crisis. And then in terms of ecological, the next chapter, ecological practice, was really about looking at further practices in architecture, product design, fashion, and seeing what they're doing and how do we apply that to performance design. And then I also came up with this idea of a framework of the 3 C's, co-creation, celebration and circulation, as a model for how we might start to move forward. And that chapter talks about this framework, a framework that I hope anybody could pick up and use. It's not a 10-step plan. This whole book is definitely not a 10-step plan, and if anything, you probably get to the end of it and more confused in some ways, because sustainability is such a complex topic. You know, the more you investigate it, the more you realize it's so big. So that's why I feel like at some point I had to stop writing it, because, you know, I could be there for another 10 years. And then also my own practice builds on that framework, and it was an opportunity for me to talk about how it's actually through my practice that this work came, this framework that came, and my philosophy behind it. The other thing that I want to say is I brought on Ian Garrett to do the foreword and Rachel Hunt to do the afterword, because I felt like I needed to have my colleague there with me. And again, forefronting them, because they've been incredible thinkers in this space. And now I can't read the slides because I'm so short-sighted, so I will get up and just move myself. Just realised that I've got glasses and I'm still so short-sighted. No, I'm fine, yeah. So basically it's about, I think the main thing for me is about positivity and bringing this lens of creativity to ecological design practice, thinking about new modes of relating, collaborative, and collaborating. So how to work co-creatively with communities, environments, materials and places, to appreciate and advocate for more than human doing, and to engage in acts of care that foster respectful and reciprocal communion with the world. And these are kind of radical ideas particularly when we work in more conventional theatre contexts. And the circular approach that I described before, which is the 3 C's, it's about thinking beyond opening night as the end point, but as a vibrant and highly visible midpoint. And it's really based on a biomimetic way of thinking. So biomimicry is based on nature and thinking about how we can be inspired by 3.8 billion years of creating life-enhancing conditions. So the 3 C's really also bring in the making and the unmaking of our practices. The unmaking side being the one that's been the least investigated in the kind of ephemeral work that we do. So it's about challenging existing perceptions of sustainability. We have a lot of assumptions, and I'm really trying to break them down in the book to really showcase, and I do this with so many wonderful designers that I feature in the book from all parts of the world, that it's beautiful and inspiring. And it's through those case studies and examples that I hope that I can carry the message forward that this is a really inspiring place to work. And that that these designers deserve to be honoured for the work that they do. It's about making a compelling case for pursuing an ecological ethic, not as only a moral imperative, but for the extraordinary possibilities that it offers for more than human engagement. It's about opening up new processes and aesthetics that enhance the environmental and social advocacy of the field. And the underlying spirit of eco-scenography is really one of opportunity. And I believe that we are standing at a unique moment in time where this is really going to come to the fore. And I think we need to see it as an opportunity for innovation in our processes, in our aesthetics, new ways of theatre making. And I think that we're only at the start, and that's a very exciting time to be. And so for me, this book is a starting point. It's not the solution. It's a conversation starter. Therefore, it's called Eco-Scenography, An Introduction to Ecological Design for Performance. And I really hope that there are many books to come from other authors and other designers that are going to showcase incredible ways of working. To reimagine and cultivate stronger relationships with materials, places, communities and ecosystems, and to invest directly in their future. That's really at the heart of what eco-scenography is about. Thank you. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that these illustrations that you see there by my sister, this was a collaboration with my sister Gisela Bär. This is our first collaboration. She's a graphic designer and an illustrator, and that was one of my greatest joys, is to write this book and have her do the illustrations. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Tanya. I would like now to ask Louise Ann Wilson to talk about sites of transformation. I think the PowerPoint will be ready in a moment.
Okay.
Wonderful. Louise, over to you.
Brilliant. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for making the book to the shortlist, to the panel. Feels like a win already, actually, getting to the shortlist. So I'm Louise Ann Wilson. I'm a UK-based artist, scenographer and researcher, and the author of Sites of Transformation, Applied and Socially Engaged Scenography in Rural Landscapes, published by Bloomsbury Methuen in 2022, February. Sites of Transformation examines the expanding field of socially engaged scenography and promotes the development of scenography as a distinctive type of applied art and performance practice that seeks tangible, therapeutic and transformative real-world outcomes, or what Christopher Bohr terms scenography with purpose. Sites of Transformation demonstrates my use of scenography to emplace challenging life events into rural landscapes, creating a site of transformation in which participants can reflect upon and reimagine their relationship to a situation or a circumstance. The book reveals an emergent field of practice that is not only rich in significance and possibilities, but is also diverse in its application. It seeks to contribute to the field of expanded scenography and is designed to open up discussion and encourage new ways of thinking about scenography as an instrument for individual, social, and cultural change. Written from a practitioner's perspective, the book uses case studies drawn from the body of site-specific walking performances that I've created in the last 12 years. These performance works have addressed terminal illness, death and bereavement, infertility and childlessness by circumstance, immobility due to illness or aging, and the impact of change, both personal and topographical. They have been created in sites ranging from mountain summits and subterranean caves to crumbling coastlines and remote lakes. These sites have become multidimensional sensory environments in which the scenography is composed of the land, its people and other than human forces, rock and water, lichen and sheep, birds and weather. These are combined with creative interventions designed to produce powerful meaning and metaphorical resonance. Moving from conception to design, collaboration and delivery, the book takes the reader deep into my creative process and offers practical tools and theoretical insights others can draw on in their own practice, research, learning and teaching. Throughout, participant responses demonstrate the efficacy of the work. Chapter 1 looks at my past work, places my practice in wider practical practice and theoretical contexts, and explores the 7 scenographic principles for creating applied scenography that I've developed. These principles are underpinned by the concept of the feminine material sublime and are informed by the vibrant use of landscape found in the writing of Dorothy Wordsworth, the sister of the poet William Wordsworth, but an amazing writer, absolutely in her own right. So by Dorothy Wordsworth and her female contemporaries. For them, working in the landscape was not about escaping it, as in the masculine transcendent sublime. Rather, it was about being present to its materiality and harnessing that materiality for purposes that were creative, therapeutic, and social. Just a note, these concepts are not about gender, but they are about a mode of engagement. Chapter 2, case studies Fisher, a 3-day-long walking performance created in response to the death of my sister, aged 29, from a brain tumour, and how I emplaced that into the landscape of the Yorkshire Dales in northern England. The chapter looks at how Fisher was made in collaboration with my sister's neuro-oncologist and her neurosurgeon, as well as cavers and a geologist, who, along with professional dancers and singers, all performed in the work. It explored my use of myth, ritual, and pilgrimage processes. Chapter 3 case studies Ghost Bird, a silent walking performance in a heather moorland in Lancashire, where the persecuted hen harrier became a metaphor for the historic persecution and hanging of the so-called Pendle witches. I use this work to look at how visual scenography is particularly suited to exploring subjects that are difficult to put into words, and how objects produce meaning when put in context and juxtaposition. Chapter 4 case studies The Gathering, a walking performance created on a sheep farm on Mount Snowdon in Wales, in which the reproductive and life cycles of the ewes and humans were interwoven. I use this work to consider my creative use of metaphor and materials, people and animals, all of the site: wool, slate, sheep, shepherds, brass and copper. A woman, often seen as a solitary figure, and the ewes move from fertile to empty. In a lambing barn, a triptych of films show a lamb adopted to a surrogate ewe. The chapter also explores my use of storyboards to draw the performance into and out of the landscape. Chapter 4 case studies Worn Scale, a walking performance that tackles childlessness by circumstance head-on. Created in the fells surrounding a mountain hut in the Lake District, the work is mediated through a walking guidebook. This contains medical information, poetic words, images, drawings, and instructions for actions, and is used by participants to face and reimagine their own experiences of involuntary childlessness. One Scale was created through research into the site and the subject matter, and with women who walked with me and drew symbolic maps of the landscape that captured their experiences of childlessness by circumstance. The maps produced informed sites, routes, and themes. Chapter 4, case studies Mullion Tide, a coastal walking performance created in Mullion, a fishing village in Cornwall in southwest England that is threatened by rising tides. It explored landscape and human loss and the impact of change, and that was personal and topographical. Performed by residents, the work put the people of Mullion centre stage. Some of the residents of Mullion repeat the walk every year and adapt it as their lives and the landscape continues to change. A palliative care model, which takes participants from diagnosis to death, was applied to the crumbling landscape and provided a structural through line. Chapter 7 explores 2 works that take people to longed-for places they can no longer visit. These were inspired by 2 people. Dorothy Wordsworth, who walked landscapes in her mind and when she could no longer do so physically. And secondly, a care home resident who I actually met when I was making Mullion-Tide, called Harold Potter, who could no longer visit the landscapes in which he had grown up. Instead, I walked for him and sent back maps, photos, and sound recordings. The chapter goes on to show how scenographic methods such as these I've just mentioned can be applied to a wide range of life events and real-world situations. And in lockdown, this methodology was used a lot. I put it out so that people could map places that they could no longer go to because they were in lockdown. And also, as you saw from the slide, I started collaborating with Harold down in his care home in Cornwall, which was a long way from where I lived in northern England, and we started communicating via Skype. And that way of working via Skype, I started doing as well with the person you can see in the top slide on the top right, who had lost a child. So she was based in Denmark and I was based in the UK. And we recognized connections in our work, and we started using the drawing methodology, and she used that to explore the loss of her son through a terminal heart condition when he was a baby. So began to really see that this sort of drawing methodology could sort of work across time and space. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Louise. I would like now, I'll give you the microphone. We have 2 authors, co-authors, Laurel J. Carpenter and Teresa Longva, to talk about 10 Together.
About there. So we're really honored to be among this company here this evening. And our publication, 10 Together, Performances by Longva and Carpenter, is an artist-edited and self-funded monograph of collaborative practice in durational visual performance, providing a chronology of our work presented from 2010 to 2020. Over this time, we designed and presented sculptural performances in galleries and public spaces, in city centers and small towns from the rural USA to islands in Norway, with stops between in Finland, Poland, Germany, and here in Prague at the previous PQ as part of Formations. So I am Laurel J. Carpenter. I am an artist, a researcher, and an educator. My solo performance work also incorporates an oversized and abstracted garment as sculptural wearable, conflating the body with larger space, site, and situation. Recently, a post-pandemic and post-publication development in my practice includes a new series of textile and video works investigating the aging female body. I was an associate professor of art in the USA before coming to the UK in 2016 for a practice-based PhD in performance within fine art. And I am soon to return to the USA for a new academic post as professor and department head of art at a large state university.
And I'm Teresa Longva. I'm a visual artist working with performance live and in front of the camera, alone, in collaboration, and with involvement of other people, like locals where I live. I moved back to my little island on the west coast of Norway, where I and a group of other artists are currently building up an artist in residence on the farm I grew up in. We met in US in 2005, but it was not until 5 years later, after I was home on my isolated island in Norway, and Laurel in a remote rural corner of New York State. Then we started to work together online, aligning our interests to our circumstances, creating a shared blog sketchbook, and meeting on Skype. We would also come together usually once a year in different studios or festivals in the US and EU to develop new work and continue the conversation.
The 10 of 10 together became significant as the anniversary of our collaboration, when in 2020, our usual rhythm of coming together annually to develop and perform new work, of course, was halted. 10 Together was our pandemic project, a way for us as performance makers to continue to share our work. And actually starting together working on Skype was very useful when we had to enter the Zoomiverse and build this book. So that what really sticks out for me in remembering making this book together was Teresa. So we had decided the images, we had done all the developmental, editorial, and invited the writers, but when it actually came to constructing the publication, Teresa was inputting everything in InDesign and sharing her screen on Zoom. So she would move a hair, line, space, but then I couldn't see it really, so she would zoom up, and I'd see, okay, that margin's aligned, and zoom out, so it was just that in and out of the work that seemed really significant. What else felt significant in the face of this unknown was the 10 years, and if iterations count 10 works over this time. The focus on 10 led to the academic yet poetic essay by Dr. Tracy Kelly, a researcher and practitioner herself. She's a beautiful writer whose slow and subtle research is on the brink of broad visibility, and I feel honored to include her insights alongside the documentation of the works. Equally important was to include our own writing, bringing forward the philosophical voice of the artist. This was our chance to survey what we had done and reflect on collaboration, embodiment, intimacy, visuality, and the transformative agency of our process, and as well as the resulting performances. An introduction and preface by Rita Marhaug, who's from Norway, and Sandra Johnson, who's from Northern Ireland, who are both well regarded as leaders in the field of visual performance, positions this publication editorially as decidedly practice-focused, international, and intersectionally feminist, using 10 as a solid launching point.
In both the work itself and in designing the publication, the visual was important. We are primarily visual artists, image makers. We designed the book to offer extended access into the work, from macro overviews to up-close details. The access was also vital in respect to our countries of origin. So each essay is included in the author's first language, Norwegian or English, with the Norwegian text translated to English for a wider readership. This is the benefit of a self-funded publication. The layout, the font, the color bleeds, the paper quality, all what was within our control. The only limitation being the budget. Thanks to the artist member group PUB, Performance Art Bergen, in Norway for serving as our ad hoc publishing house, along with funding from the Norwegian Art Council, Møre og Romsdal County, where I live and work, along with AN in the UK. We were not able to get the books directly to to the bookshop, but there are still copies available to order via our website.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Thank you very much, Laurel. I would like to ask Pia Gutierrez-Diaz, to talk about Album de Archivo. Have you got a microphone?
Okay, yes. Well, this is our book, a small book, but really loved one. I would like to start greeting the authors who are joining me today for this PQ talk about the shortlisted books for best publication. I'd also like to thank Pavel, curator and organizer of this meeting, and the Chilean Association of Scenic Design and the Chilean government for supporting me to be here today. I am very happy to learn about the work of the others here today and to meet them at the intersection of two passions, books and theater. This book has been created in the South along with Catalina Devia, my friend. She is a scenographic designer, and is the result of a long journey that began in 2017 after the death of Sergio Zapata Brunet, Chile's first professional scenic designer who graduated from Universidad de Chile in 1955. His career trajectory accompanied the history of Chilean theater in the second half of the 20th century, and he participated many times in this quadrennial. As Zapata's death drew near, several of us concerned with our country's disregard for matters of cultural heritage, we began to work together in the artist's apartment to catalog his belonging. Since then, 6 years ago, the archive of the author has been organized, his book has been published, and his work and documents have been shared in different modes. This experience has been like diving into the sea, at times refreshing and often tiring. We feel pushed by this current that has been collectively created. It makes me and Catalina happy to be able to share this work with an international public today. An apartment full of objects, papers, records, ornaments, paintings, furniture, imitation, originals, paints, brushes, pencils, scalimeter, and red lamp, music on records, cassettes, and CDs, books, plants, dresses, models, paper puppets, treats, pins, plants, sketches, annotated sheets, photos, videos, negatives, and DAGs, so many DAGs, with the most diverse shapes, material, and purpose. These were my encounters with the scenic designer Sergio Zapata. I did not meet in life. Catalina Devia asked me to help separate the object in his apartment between what should be kept and what should be sold or given away. It was necessary to be practical, but both Catalina and Zapata's relative, his niece and grandniece, were clear that preserving important items in the apartment was necessary to make them available to everyone. Imagination is the core of desire, writes Anne Carson in her essay, Eros, the Bittersweet. This is our epigraph in the book. Eros is what moves us, and although it always has a difficult reverse side, It is from this drive that we create and that make us feel alive. There was a lot of eros in this book. From that desire, we imagined its existence because we were fascinated not only by Sergio Zapata's work, but also by the creative chaos he left behind. The work of lifetime introduced accumulation as a methodology. And when his life was over, his material legacy remained. Archivist and librarian Fabiola Neira, who is my collaborator in Colectivo Arte, a project from 5 women about creative process archives, joined us during our explorations, which occupies us for almost 2 years. Jenny Araya and Rocío García, niece and grandniece of Sergio Zapata, devotedly opened the apartment for us every Saturday and shared their time and effort. The archive can be now freely accessed on the Colectivo Arte website. We hope that in the future, the physical document will be kept by institutions capable of preserving them and allowing their use, giving them a life beyond us. In creating this book, we held the conviction that objects can be very distinct experiences. What I read in the frame of the theatrical design history, the family understood as evidence of affections. Jacques Le Goff says in his book, The Order of Memory, that the Latin term documentum derives from docere, to teach, and that from there the word document has evolved to acquire the value of proof that we give today. It is precisely in this sense that the remains of a life are constituted as a document. Their existence is evidence of a deed. That is why when we analyze them, they show us unexpected crossroad, domestic activities that accompany creation, ethical and political decisions that in turn trace quotation or reference in the field of the art, fashion, or mass media culture. This can be seen in the case of Zapata's document, and this book is our reading of that landscape. Our discussion in this process of creation we long. We wondered how to find the notes, the path, how to rise or gaze and integrate the reflection of others. It is therefore an album, a possible reading of the images grouped in categories that move us, such as samples, texture, silhouettes, colors, graphics, and lists. The publication was followed by the public activation of its content, meaning using other formats to disseminate the documents and inviting other people to generate their own reading for this album. This is how the idea of an exhibition and series of conversation was born. The document offer proof or reference, but they don't make sense one way only. Therefore, we did not look for a true past, but a sincere one. The album is for us an intellectual exercise that offers possible entrance to object. We found a particular fascination in the images that connect us with our own context. This allowed us to think about ongoing legacies and other that we are silenced such as gender issues or representation of social classes in violent contexts as the military dictatorship during the 70s and 80s. Since that first day in Zapata's apartment, a long time has passed. Finally, the house became empty. The objects that were not integrated into the archive have been scattered in many other houses, bought by friends and students who wanted them out of generosity and genuine delight to have them as a sample of what Zapata means to scenic design in Chile. Thinking about the future of these objects, which so insistently become source of reproduction and presence, we ventured to build this book to embody the desire to give life to Zapata's chaos accumulation. Álbum de Archivo is part of the catalog of the independent publishing house, Ediciones Oxímeron. And we are grateful to editors Paula Gaete and Ismael Rivera for printing this book. This is an independent work that we hope will bring joy to those who find them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pia. Neil, would you like to? Okay, what's up? Okay, thank you very much, Pia. Now I would like to invite Neil O'Dwyer to talk about the final book on the shortlist. The order is random, called Digital Scenography. Neil, over to you. Okay.
So I've skipped really far ahead there. Go back. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Neil O'Dwyer. Can I first of all just say what a great honor it is to have my work shortlisted, and how anxious I feel after being last in line after an incredible group of presenters who have presented very unique and wonderful works of collections of knowledge. So, yeah, just in terms of who I am and what I'm doing now, because this book was published in 2021, and now my my work has kind of progressed into extended reality and virtual reality. And I have a project called PixArt, which is hosted by Trinity College Dublin. But obviously, I'm here today to talk to you about digital scenography, which is really basically it's kind of like my thesis transformed or advanced to a book. So really, this is something that has been going. This is a piece of research that was going from probably 2010, 2011, until I finished the PhD sometime around 2016, and then it started to become a book, and that was published in 2021. So that's quite a chunk of my life, as you can see. So just to give you an idea of just where I'm coming from, I guess. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail. I should also say that these slides are kind of cannibalized from like a 40-minute talk. So I'm not going to show you all the slides. I'm going to skip through them. But I guess what I was trying to do was to merge, I suppose, the field of expanded scenography. You'll probably recognize some authors there, like McKinney and Palmer, Soja Locker and Thea Brezic. And Hans Thies Lehmann, and so people like this who I suppose are talking about taking performance out of the traditional proscenium format and kind of transforming performance into something that's guided by a kind of a spatialized thought process. And I suppose where I'm coming from was what I wanted to do was to merge that with kind of digital media theory. And I suppose what I was trying to do was to kind of make a genealogy of scenographic innovations, specifically performances that are afforded by the invention of digital technologies and the microchip. So the book focuses on the shift that takes place in performance practice and process through the introduction of digital technologies. And the goal is to produce what I would describe as a nascent vocabulary or grammar of digital scenography. So that is kind of useful epistemologically and pedagogically. So just in terms of the methodology that the book uses, or the strategy of analysis, so as I said, it's a kind of a merger of digital media theory and scenographic scholarship. And so on one hand, I'm kind of drawing on the kind of theories of authors, philosophers actually, but like Bernard Stiegler, Gilbert Simondon, André Leroi-Gourhan, Catherine Hales, Donna Haraway, and so on. And on the other side then, people like McKinney and Palmer and Brejek and Locker, Goff and Bach. So I suppose as a kind of, as the mainspring for catalyzing the conversation in the book, I kind of draw on Bernard Stiegler's notion of historical rupture. And I kind of identify, first of all, in the 20th century, the invention of the microchip, and then more importantly for this book is the intervention, the intervention of the internet, which is a cultural invention more so than a physical invention, and this I kind of suggest that cultural inventions have a bigger bang. They have much more because that's the point when the technology falls into the hands of the artists and the makers and the grassroots, and that's when it really explodes. And that's why I choose 1990 as the beginning of the. That's why I'm only doing a kind of a 30-year genealogy rather than going back over the 20th century, because I think there's enough books that have done that. And so what I suggest is that based on the fact that we have like a first scenographic turn in the age of electrical lighting, we can, adapt that notion and say that we're now experiencing a second mechanical turn, or a second scenographic turn under the aegis of digital technologies. I'm not going to go through all these because actually conveniently I condensed them down into 4 words. There's like what they are, the kind of the criteria for the types of performances that I analyze in the book. And I conveniently summarized them here for you. So first of all, they have to be scenographic performances. They are, in terms, they have to speak to the spatialization of thought through performance. I guess they have to be, for me, they have to be experimental to qualify for my book. Inventive. So I like to think of I like to think of artists as kind of reinventors or repurposers of technology. And that, for me, is one of the most important ways that I think about my own practice, actually, is a kind of a repurposing of technology towards, I think, creative cultural ends. And then obviously they have to be digital, or they don't get to be in my book. So just very quickly, I'm going to shoot through the chapters. I'm going to shoot through what's in each chapter. There's only 6 chapters. So I didn't want to take the encyclopedic approach where you probably are familiar with many books that do a huge genealogy and I suppose they end up being encyclopedias really. And for me, there's already enough of that in the whole digital theory performance area. So what I wanted to do was to really kind of deeply focus on a selection of just 6 performances and use them to kind of, or I suppose, use them to think about the relevance of what's happening to our society, I guess, in terms of technology and the efficacy of technology, what I would say, in our lives. So very quickly, I'll just explain to you that I frame Troika Ranch as the kind of like the early avant-garde innovations in digital scenography. There's some of the themes that are in the chapter, but I'm not going to go into them because I don't think I have time. I look at Stellark and the notion of what I describe as a scenography of the cyborg. So this is where technology is kind of intersecting with the body or penetrating the body. Then I look at Klaus Obermeier's work. Now, for each of these artists, I actually analyze a couple of their work. So I kind of give it like a 5-year time frame to each of the artists. So Stellark's work, that work was actually developed over actually nearly 10 years. And for Troika Ranch, they had a kind of a specific early period of experimentation that kind of also went on for about 5 or 10 years. And the same for Klaus Obermeier. I look at 3 of his performances, not just this one. And there are some of the themes that I look at as well. Things like surveillance and the kind of disappearance of the interior. Themes like psychopower and biopolitics and things like this come up in the chapter. I also look at Chunky Move. Again, like as you can see, there's a lot of focus on projection design here, and the kind of I suppose the idea that scenography becomes more malleable and interactive, and in that way is kind of transforming the space of the performance. I also look at Onion Lab, which were one of the first companies to do architectural projection mapping. They work they're in Barcelona. I actually do an analysis of the Blade Runner 2049 movie in there as well. If anybody, I guess most of you have seen it, but there's a giant projection advertisement of a nude woman. So I kind of talk about the economy of desire and the exploitation of desire in the cultural economy. And then finally, there's a performance by Blast Theory called Karen, which is a mobile app performance, and it's or an app drama, and this deals specifically with notions of tracking and surveillance and user profiling, biopolitics, privacy, big data, and all these kind of very current concerns that we're still grappling with and trying to get our heads around. I bring in notions of algorithmic governmentality and 24/7 capitalism. I suppose in terms of concluding the book, I look at, as I said, I try to define a kind of a nascent grammar of I suppose digital scenography, and so what I can kind of conclude is that I kind of expand expand those qualifying criteria that I offered at the beginning of the book, and kind of refine them a bit. So the kind of categories that I came up with in terms of concluding the book is that these characteristics of digital scenography are often are loaded with a lot of political agency, singularity, indeterminism, innovative repurposing of technologies, which I mentioned, then digital specificity, noetic reactivation, which is, it makes you think, basically. That's art that makes you think. And increasing technological performativity. Performativity, I guess, there is used in the context of, J.F. Austin, or words that have action. So I believe that technology itself, in its own existence, has action and inspires us into action as well. So, so that's it. I think I'm done. Yeah, there's no concluding slide. That's it. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all our 9 presenters, well, more presenters, all the 9 wonderful books. As Aziza says, we have been impressed by the range and variety and really the worlds that each of the books brings and shares with this world. I would like to also borrow Pia's idea when she says this is an overlaps or an intersection of people who love theatre, performance, scenography, and those who love books. And thank you very much for sharing your ideas, sharing your stories, making these fantastic, beautiful and moving books. And thank you very much for coming to share those moments with our shortlisted authors. Thank you very much. This was PQ Talks, and have a lovely evening. And please join me in thanking and congratulating our shortlisted authors.